Week 12 running back rankings. As we know, as this season goes on and as this position goes along, there are a bunch of injuries that pile up. And here, when we record this midday, 2 o'clock Eastern on a Wednesday, we don't have all of that injury information. It's also why we have that Sunday morning start-sit show. Hayden, with that in mind, there are about 5 names here I need to ask you about before we get into these rankings. It's a bit of a lay of the land on who's in, who's out. Right. So first up, Josh Jacobs dealing with that knee injury, in or out for you here in these rankings?
I got him leaning in for now.
Okay. Rhamondre Stevenson. We know he's missed a couple games, in or out?
He'll be back. I feel good about that.
Okay. Bashal Tutin, after seeing a handful of snaps alongside and in front of and behind Travis Etienne, in or out this week?
I'm going out. I watched it. He would look like he got shot after his ankle injury. I would be pretty surprised. He was like really laying on the ground.
Yeah, there's some like conflicting information there with what you saw with your eyes and then listening to Bashal Tutin after the game saying, oh, of course, I'll be out there next week. Next, Isaiah Pacheco, who's also missed a handful of weeks here.
ESPN said it's either this week or next week. I think I'll probably play in my rankings, though. I do have it as Kareem Hunt just because I just got that information.
Okay. And finally, Bucky Irving, who returned kind of in a walkthrough mode last week off of not injured reserve. Do you expect him to play here in week 12?
I mean, I don't know. I've barely even seen the man. We got like reporters laying on the ground with binoculars taking iPhone shots. So I'm leaning out, but who knows? But this is why I write. I use my fingers. I type on the keyboard so you guys could read words. In 2025, I'll have all this stuff updated.
That is linked in the description down below, and obviously in the rankings videos that we have in the future on top of that. That is not to say that Hayden will not adjust if those players are in. So once again, that is just through the context of those players being in or out. That is where these top 34 running backs are being ranked here this week. So let's kick things off with Jahmyr Gibbs as your running back 1. This is against the New York Giants. Finished as running back 12 last week. Obviously, the team was projected for 22 points. Now they're just, a couple ticks higher than that, Hayden, at 30.25 this week at home against the Giants.
I didn't realize he finished as the RB12. I ranked him as the RB12, and people lost their freaking minds in the comments last week.
I clapped back for you. Don't worry.
Good. And now they always say I'm a Jahmyr Gibbs hater. I have him as the RB1. This is as elite of a spot as you can get. They're projected for almost 31 points. They're back at home. No dome, or no being outside of the dome. The Giants have allowed the most rushing EPA per carry. And Jahmyr Gibbs after halftime played a lot more snaps than David Montgomery. I'm guessing that's more game script related. But if that was something like Dan Campbell and like, hey, we don't have our one of our starting guards, we need to get to the perimeter a little bit more. We like Jahmyr Gibbs. Then that unleashes like a 25, 30 point ceiling for Jahmyr Gibbs. So I'm expecting more Jahmyr Gibbs as the season progresses. And for this week, even if he has the same role, rotating drives, it's the freaking Giants at home.
Demont is still ranked reasonably high, so we'll get to him here in a couple of tiers. Next is Christian McCaffrey against the Carolina Panthers. Not a revenge spot. You cannot call it a revenge spot in terms of a top 10 and then trading him away for second and third round picks.
Yeah. CMC lives, who lives a better life than CMC, just all things considered, and Panthers are a part of that.
He plays chess and warms up for practice for about 7 hours a day and then goes home to his child and model girlfriend and wife at this point.
Yeah, and on the cover of GQ as a side hustle.
Talk me through this matchup because it's an interesting one in that, per NFL Pro, the Panthers are 9th in defending off-tackle runs, 4th in red zone rushing defense, 8th in defending runs out of light boxes. But on top of that, I'll continue to bring it up all week long that both backup linebackers for the Panthers could be playing here. Even the starters were a weakness on top of that. So again, based on this being at home, based on the San Francisco 49ers being favored, I could easily see it being a throw to lead, run to win situation here.
I don't really care about the rushing production. That's just kind of the cherry on top. He's going to be isolating those linebackers, and that's where CMC is going to catch a bunch of passes and go absolutely nuts. So, yeah, great spot.
Jonathan Taylor, you're running back 3. This is at the Kansas City Chiefs. A week of rest here for JT. The only thing I'll bring up, the Colts and the 2 losses this season. JT has finished as the running back 22 and running back 30 in those weeks. This week, they are underdogs on the road by 3.5 points.
Yeah, Chiefs run defense is just historically good. Steve Spagnuolo usually has a good game plan here. I knocked it down a couple spots, but it's really hard to ignore the production. So lean into the splits a little bit because they're road dogs here, but people would lose their mind if I dropped him further than this.
That's part of the rankings, right? Just to
Yeah.
prevent people from losing their minds.
Hey, consensus matters.
Bijan Robinson is your running back 4. This is at the New Orleans Saints. You know, Zach Robinson, Raheem Morris were asked how they're going to change their offense, you know, without their starting quarterback in Michael Penix and without their number 1 wide receiver in Drake London. Easy to assume that's just going to mean more Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier.
Yeah, he's just going to get the rock a bunch. Last week was a season high usage for him. This week,
So good.
They're projected for the 5th fewest points. And like, I mean, what am I supposed to do with that information? He's going to touch the ball 25 times in this one. They have like nothing to really play for except to get Bijan his touches as the season kind of just spirals out of control. So I think he's live for 10 targets in this one. They don't have Drake London, and just Kirk Cousins doesn't want to like throw the ball downfield. They're just going to scheme him the ball up. I hope that Matthew Bergeron plays their guard. But this reminds me of like a mini CMC situation where he's just going to get the rock so much it doesn't even matter about the matchup.
I posted clips on Twitter of his first half. It was unbelievable, the tackles he was breaking. Such a good player out there. You just have to hope that the blocking, especially at tight end, is solid enough to be successful against this Saints defense.
Last thing on Bijan, he's at 124 total yards in the Pick'em lobby, which is higher than the 3 guys ahead of him. He's just not expected to score as many touchdowns because you got the Algier, the lower team total, but yardage wise, PPR, all that type of stuff. I would listen to arguments that he can even go higher than this.
I could hear that too, because again, prior to last week, he had 4 total touchdowns and then scored 2 this past week. So it's not like they're totally against using him inside the 5-yard line. It just hasn't happened prior to week 11. Derrick Henry, your running back 5. This is against the New York Jets. As a favorite of 7 or more points this season, according to Rich Rebar, Derrick Henry averages 119 rushing yards per game. I think the Ravens are projected for, to win this game by a little bit more than 7 points here.
Yes. Yeah. You can pretty much double. It's now up at 13.5. It's go time. Evan Silva had a great quote talking about how defenders start thinking about their families around the holidays, and that Derrick Henry starts steamrolling dudes with defenders thinking about other things beyond football. And I couldn't agree more.
Rico Dowdle, running back 6 at the San Francisco 49ers. So this 49ers defense we know is beat up at the linebacker level with Fred Warner, on the defensive line with Nick Bosa and many other players. So that has allowed or forced the 49ers defense to be 29th in rushing success rate allowed at 46% and 26th in yards per 4 contact allowed at 1.59 yards. If there ever is an avenue for the Panthers to keep this one close, it is those type of efficient, sustainable runs, because that's how Rico has really had some of his best performances so far this season.
Yeah, they're still really run heavy in general. That's how they want to do it, and the 49ers can't stop it because their entire front seven's on injured reserve. He's had 5 straight games above 14 expected half PPR points when he's the starter, and most of the time that's about 19, 20 points. Even last week, a dud for him. He had, I believe, is a season high 21.7 expected half PPR points. You had that awesome clip of him calling his own touchdown. If you want to explain that one, but I thought that was really cool.
Game leading touchdown drive. Rico, prior to that, was on the sideline asking for the screen to be called over and over and over again on 1st and 10. He went to the running backs coach, then went to offensive coordinator, then went to the play caller / head coach and Dave Canales. And then they called it. And at first it was called a 38-yard touchdown, then brought back to the 28-yard gain. And then he just started pointing. He's like, I told you.
And the coach is like, I listened, man. Relax. I listened.
It's actually the second time he's done that this season.
That's great.
He also had, I think, a sweet run against the Miami Dolphins that he called for that play too.
That's awesome.
Okay. James Cook is your running back 7. This is at the Houston Texans. 14 touches into 104 yards with a touchdown in the second half of last week. The receiving work has been added to his game over the past 2 weeks, where it really wasn't there over the first about 8 weeks of the season. And he might need that again here against this Houston Texans front.
I think there's something to that without Dalton Kincaid, that you can get kind of similar-ish matchups, just in different ways. The one kind of leak route was really awesome. They got James Cook up against an edge rusher because they had a blitz on the other side, and he obviously sprinted right by him. So that was really cool. So you're getting some fun designs. Over the last 365 days, he's the RB8. Some of the guys ranked ahead of him are on bye or are injured, so he belongs in this tier, even though the Texans have one of those defensive lines. So that makes me nervous. The team total is only down to like 25 points though, so I can't overreact to this. And like you said, if we're going to take one or two Dalton Kincaid targets and start popping them over to James Cook, I think that even adds more explosiveness.
Yeah, Reeves had the numbers in the worksheet this week that 8 receptions for 90 yards over the past 2 weeks after 13 receptions for 100 yards in the opening 8 games of the season. Travis Etienne is your running back 8. Again, we led the show by talking about Bashal Tutin, in your eyes, maybe being out for this game. It's a toss-up at this point. But if he is out, then over the last couple of games, the Jaguars have really once again become a very successful rushing attack. And while they went into last week splitting the backfield, if there's no one to split with, then that's going to be the vast majority to Travis Etienne here.
If Tutin's out, Travis Etienne is an elite RB1. Like, do not overthink this one. Over the last month coming out of the bye week, the Jaguars have had the most running back usage in the NFL at 33.5 points. That's pretty similar to like what the Lions have been at over the last couple of years when they've just been super run heavy. That's definitely true at the goal line too, where both running backs have been getting utilized there, but Travis Etienne also gets some wildcat carries, and he can pop off some big ones. He's utilized in the screen game because you have Liam Cohen here. And on top of that, they're top 10 in projected points this week, up at 25. They get the Cardinals, who are allowing 4.5 yards per carry to running backs dealing with a lot of injuries. So I feel really comfortable about this one. In the last note, Travis Etienne this year has finished as a top 12 weekly finisher in 6 of 10 games. That is pretty insane stuff from somebody who doesn't get a lot of kudos thrown his way.
TreVeyon Henderson is your running back 9. So consensus rankings actually have him as running back 6 this week. Now, consensus rankings are not expecting Rhamondre Stevenson to play. Mike Reese just posted, that's what I was reading during what you were just saying, that he just drew a big media crowd, Rhamondre Stevenson did, in the locker room, and said, quote, he feels better, but the true test will be how he responds to practice. So he is practicing, which is a big deal here. Anyways, this matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals is an all-time great spot. So what are you expecting here for Hendo here in week 12?
Yeah, so if Rhamondre's out, everyone knows to play TreVeyon Henderson. This is my ranking with Rhamondre Stevenson in, because Rhamondre would be playing through, I believe, a turf toe injury, which takes a long time, especially if you're, Rhamondre, he's probably 240, 245, let's be honest here. And I think that TreVeyon Henderson, they've got the role down for him. So I think even in a somewhat of a committee, TreVeyon's going to be able to rip off some big plays, and the Bengals just have not been able to stop anybody. So the Patriots are second in projected points, about 29. So you can even, let's say it's a 50-50 split. We still feel really good about starting him. And then on top of that, the Bengals are just like giving up on tackling. Their corners can't tackle anybody. Their linebackers are terrible. And most likely you're not going to have either of the top edge rushers on top of that. So it's a complete disaster, like specifically for where Henderson gets like utilized to the outside and wins races against these linebackers and make these corners try to tackle. It just ain't happening. So I feel good as TreVeyon Henderson as an RB1 in this matchup, even if Rhamondre does play.
The Bengals are allowing 185 yards per game to running backs, which is 34 more yards per game than the next closest team. Yeah. That's from Reeves' worksheet. That's insane stuff. So like you said, Hendo and this rushing attack, those are the only successful runs on the edge so far for them. But this could also be weak because of how bad the Bengals are, that you get inside runs that are also successful on top of it. One final note that Reeves had, TreVeyon Henderson has scored more fantasy points in each of the past 2 weeks than Rhamondre Stevenson has scored in any game over his career.
Yeah. It helps to have 50-yard touchdowns, that's for sure. One final note back to you. Aaron Schatz, who does all the DVOA work, I think that goes back to the 1970s. It's the worst defense through 10 weeks ever, the Bengals. Ever. 1970.
Yeah, I mean, that's nuts because we just saw the worst historical NFL defense last season in terms of points per game allowed. And the Bengals are apparently worse than that.
Worse.
Nuts. Okay, Kyren Williams is your running back 10. This is against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, which is first in rushing success rate allowed, second in stuff rate. But as we talk about on a weekly basis, while they might stuff you on multiple carries, they are susceptible to big runs.
Big runs, and also just like some choice routes out of the backfield with Kyren's been mixing in there. So he keeps dominating Blake Corum in terms of efficiency and still keeps getting home. Still want to keep reiterating, it is like a 50-50 drive rotation. Like that's held true even last week in a close game. Kyren's been excellent. The Rams projected for the 4th most points on the week, so you can lose snaps and still get home for Kyren Williams. He's kind of been around the RB10 range this year and over the last 365 days. And last week we did see like one thing kind of new. Blake Corum got 3 carries in a row at the goal line, got stuffed. And after a timeout or an injury or something, they subbed Kyren Williams in, and that's when he scored a touchdown. So if you're going to break some ties, I'll go that way. Don't love the matchup here, but it's hard to say anything negatively about the Rams.
Totally fair. On Sunday mentioned that Blake Corum got those 3 carries, then 4th down, boom, here comes Kyren, and he actually scores.
Yep.
Next, Saquon Barkley, your running back 11. Unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys defense is not as bad as the New York Giants defense.
I know.
And the New York Giants defense is the only one that Saquon Barkley has had great rushing production against. And, Quinshon Williams did look like he made a difference, lining up next to Kenny Clark for this Dallas Cowboys defense.
Yeah, those are my exact same notes. We can't copy paste the Cowboys rushing defense notes. I will say they're still really slow at linebackers. So if Saquon does split it, he can absolutely still have a monster game here. It's just harder to do that when you don't have Lane Johnson. I mentioned the splits already, but EPA per play over the last 4 years, when he's on the field, that's plus 13. When he's not on the field, that's minus 10. That's a huge split there. Success rate included. Cam Jurgens has been injured. We'll see if he's going to suit up here, but I think the offensive line injuries and then the play calling in general, I think are the 2 main reasons why Saquon's not hitting as many explosives this year, and neither of those things have been solved heading into this week. So boom bust, upside RB2, I think is pretty fair.
You have Josh Jacobs in this week against the Minnesota Vikings run defense. Again, we've seen Josh Jacobs be questionable all week up until the deadline and then play on that Sunday or even Monday, if I can't remember exactly which one it was. Talk to me about this matchup here.
So I went back and watched it. He landed on his knee. He didn't get hit by a defender. He just landed on his knee. He's listed as day-to-day with a knee contusion. I'm guessing he's going to play, but who knows? This is about where I'd have Emmanuel Wilson, though. Partially injured Josh Jacobs or Emmanuel Wilson with no competition behind him. It's all in the same. So matchup-wise, not my favorite. Josh Jacobs had pretty mediocre games against the Vikings last season. The Vikings have a lot of edge rushers and defensive tackles that you've probably never even heard of who make a lot of plays. So it's scheme and all those defensive line investments from the offseason. You're starting to feel the effects of those more recently here. So Josh Jacobs has been the RB5 per game over the last 365 days. I'm lowering him in my rankings here because of the injury and the matchup. This is about where I would have Emmanuel Wilson if Jacobs is not cleared.
So I was going to ask that question. If Jacobs is out, where would you rank Emmanuel Wilson for the people that picked him up on the waiver wire this week?
It would be here, give or take a couple of spots.
Even if he's a worse talent, he would then still assume about 80% of the workload, if not 90%, if not 95%.
Yeah. And I'm discounting Josh. It's not 100% Josh Jacobs versus Emmanuel Wilson. It's probably about the same.
If you struggle to get that person in your life, say your mom, your grandmother, your mother-in-law, a gift, I have the perfect one for you. It is the Aura digital frame. I got my mother-in-law one a couple years ago. I swear she just sits in her living room and watches the new photos that we upload online for her just from our phones over and over and over again all day. Plus, we're expecting our first child in December, right around Christmas time. This will be the perfect way, again, us from the hospital or at home, to upload these new photos and videos to the Aura frame to our family members so they don't have to come and bother us in our own home. So for a limited time, visit auraframes.com and get $45 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code The Show at checkout. That is AURA frames.com, promo code The Show. This exclusive Black Friday Cyber Monday deal is their best of the year. So order now before it ends. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Chase Brown is your running back 13. This is against the New England Patriots. We've talked about it with Samaje Perine out. Chase Brown has been on the field all the time. In fact, he's jumped up to 86% and 83% of dropbacks, according to the worksheet, over the last 2 weeks, when it was about 49% prior to that. This Patriots run defense, I think you could argue, Hayden, has taken a small step back without Milton Williams, but still, I would expect them to still have the dominant hand just in terms of the rushing here.
Yeah. It's too big to fail pretty much with Chase Brown, but without Jamar Chase and then you're playing the Patriots, like I don't feel like totally comfortable with this. Now it's the same exact role that he had last year when he went completely nuts. So the last 2 weeks, you mentioned the snaps. I'll mention 22.1 and 16.6 expected fantasy points. It's just hard because the Patriots have been the very best against fantasy running backs, only allowing 13.9 half PPR points per game. And I just don't think that the Bengals offensive line is going to create much push there. And I think a lot of that stat is like a Vrabel identity thing, like loading the box, getting beefy players, where as much as we love Milton Williams, I think even if you remove a star player like that, it's just like, all right, there's too many big dudes clogging lanes anyways.
So the receiving work is vital here, basically.
Oh yeah.
DeAndre Swift is your running back 14. This is against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has 18 and 21 touches over the last 2 weeks. What the heck? Voice, what was that? It's like a monster entered my body.
Yeah.
Talk me through this Steelers matchup.
I think it's a totally fine matchup. The Steelers have had like Alex Highsmith like in and out of the lineup, so don't know about all that. I think the Bears offensive line's playing admirably. I think that they're pushing the right buttons, and Kyle Monunga got the goal line carry, but that was like on a huge DeAndre Swift drive where I think he was just mostly tired. DeAndre Swift's still the clear lead back. He's the RB21 and RB16 usage this month, even with Monunga mixing in. Steelers played a lot of two high shells last week. They put Ramsey back there. I think that was mostly because of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, so they can kind of double him up. But if that does remain true, I do think that Ben Johnson would be pretty disciplined by the book, which means a lot of carries.
The Steelers rushing defense has been a bit high variance. Like, they held Josh Jacobs to 33 yards, Jonathan Taylor to 45 yards rushing, but then, 95 yards and a touchdown to Kamani Vidal, 99 yards to Chase Brown as well. So it's not exactly, because those two don't make sense.
You just flipped those numbers. Yeah, you made me feel like I'm dyslexic.
To be in the last two, but we'll see. I mean, again, this Bears offense has really found something in their rushing attack ever since the bye week. Javonte Williams is your running back 15. It's kind of been a light last 4 games here for Javonte Williams, where he was, inside of the top 6, 7, 8 in scoring frequently. He's now been the running back 21 over the past 4 weeks in points per game.
Yeah, there was like one dud in there, and then I think the rest of the game's touchdowns just went to like George Pickens instead of Javonte Williams. I don't think anything's really changed here. The entire offensive line is back. Dak Prescott's playing out of his mind. Javonte Williams had some explosiveness. I don't think that's really changed here. It's just been a bad start to the season, and these things tend to regress. Now, I did rank him lower this week because it's the damn Eagles, man, and you got those 2 defensive tackles. You got those 2 linebackers, Cooper DeJean tackles, Quinyon Mitchell tackles, Vic Fangio is a total monster. And then you add Jalen Phillips, who's a monster. Nolan Smith is stout for his size. And then they're adding guys in terms of depth behind that. Their defensive tackle 3 is good player too. So it's like good versus good all the way around here. Can't wait to watch this side of the ball.
When teams make moves for edge rushers like Jalen Phillips or, the deal for Nolan Smith, people perceive them as, speed edge rushers who just get the passer, but they're so important when it comes to run defense, like knifing into the backfield or, holding the point of attack and allowing everyone else to fill. And both of them do a very, very good job of that. Woody Marks is your running back 16. It's a tough one because we saw a couple weeks ago him take over the backfield. We got the coach speak to back up that he is going to continue to lead the backfield. He did that this past week, but it didn't end in a lot of production. But then you look at this matchup on Thursday night against the Buffalo Bills, a Bills defense that in many games this season has been putrid at stopping the run. Horrific, one of the worst in the league. But then you have to take a step back, Hayden, and ask yourself, well, is the Texans offensive line even good enough to put the Bills defense in that type of situation?
I don't know, but I think they're going to have to try it because every single team in the league has done it against the Buffalo Bills. Right now, this is over the entire course of the season. On early downs, when the winning percentage between 20 and 80%, which is what I call neutral situations, teams are running the ball on 61% of their plays. That's absurd. That's like what the Jets offense does. That's what like the Browns and the Ravens offense has done historically. So they're going to try it, and he's been playing a bunch of the snaps. Nick Chubb's barely being utilized here, And over the last 2 weeks, that's 16.3 and 13 expected half PPR points. And Nick Chubb, we're not even hearing from him at this point. So Bills are now second worst against fantasy running backs. Sean Tucker just completely ate them alive. And Woody Marks and Sean Tucker kind of look the same to me. The big difference is, the Bucks versus Texans offensive line, but we don't need 3 touchdowns and 150 yards here.
I don't know if Woody Marks going to have Tristan Wirfs leading the way on those pull concepts.
That would be nice.
On the edge.
That would be nice.
Just rent him for Thursday night.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty sweet.
That'll cost you a first for one game.
Lord Reeves pointed this out. Bills have allowed a rushing touchdown in 8 straight games, the longest streak in the league, and their longest streak since the 2016 season. And Woody, despite a smaller size, actually has all 3 backfield touches inside the 5-yard line over the past 2 games over Nick Chubb. Kareem Hunt starts your tier 3 here at number 17 overall against the Indianapolis Colts. I wish I'd brought this up on Stats versus Film when we were just talking about some issues with the Chiefs. While once they get inside the 5-yard line, Kareem Hunt is an absolute weapon there. He brings nothing in terms of creating explosives, but neither does Isaiah Pacheco in the rushing department. And that's like a lever that the Chiefs just cannot pull right now.
Which is crazy because they got a actually good offensive line. Like they got Josh Simmons back. Sumatia, their guard, who's actually been a much better guard than he was a tackle. He's in concussion protocol, but the rest of the line is well built right now. So it really just comes down to if Isaiah Pacheco is going to play. He returned to practice. ESPN said it's either going to be this week or next week. I'll update the rankings then. But Kareem Hunt as the starter, he was the RB13 last year as a starter, for multiple months. And then this month without Pacheco, he's a running back 17 or running back 22 usage. So he's the definition of a half PPR RB2. They're projected for a bunch of points here. DeForest Buckner is on injured reserve. He's expected to come back for the playoffs, but he's going to be missing most of the fantasy season for us. So it just comes down to if Pacheco is going to return. And when that does, it's been a total slot fest.
Running back 18. Kenneth Walker III at the Tennessee Titans. Seattle projected to win this game on the road by 13.5 points. This week on the mic, in a loss to the Rams, by the way, K9 doubled up on both of the other backs combined in Charbonnet and George Holani. So, of course, McDonald stated that, quote, Kenneth Walker is showing that he's earning more opportunities to get the ball. Some might argue he's been doing that all season long. Yeah. We'll see if they are going to be able to run the football despite leading late, because they've struggled to do that in many games this season. And we need to monitor the Gray Zabel injury on top of it.
I'm expecting Zabel to miss, and then Jeffrey Simmons, a legit top 10 player on defense in the entire league, to play for this matchup. But the Seahawks are also projected for 27 points. They're 13.5 point favorites. So as much as I don't love the interior offensive line, defensive line matchup here, you got to start ignoring these things. You're Kenneth Walker, when he gets to the perimeter, might take it all the way to the house. So I feel good about it. I think as the season progresses, as the standings start to matter a little bit more, I won't be surprised if Kenneth Walker not goes to bell cow mode, but just starts to separate from the pack a little bit. And last week, he was the only guy to get a goal line opportunity, which has been the case for the last couple games now.
I think he also had a 24-yard touchdown run called back too. We haven't seen, the trademark 20+ yard touchdown from K9 this season. Yeah. So maybe it starts here in week 12. It'd be nice if the best running back had the football more often. David Montgomery is your running back 19, as we talked about with Jahmyr Gibbs as your running back 1 overall. When the Lions go up big, this kind of can turn into a 50-50 split because the Lions know that they have 2 quality running backs.
I think it's especially true if they're blowing a team out. Yeah. So they're 10.5 point favorites here, the highest team total of the week. This year, they've won 6 games. He's averaged 70 total yards in those games. Last year, in 12 wins, that was at 84 yards per game. That makes sense, where Gibbs taking a little bit more of the pie. But 70 yards and a decent shot at a touchdown is enough for RB2 consideration here. So no Sam Laporta might help the running backs at the margins a little bit too. And he lost a lot of touches in the second half last week because of the game script. But in the first half, David Montgomery played a lot and got a lot of touches. So I think it'll be largely 60-40 in front of Gibbs. Gibbs obviously way more explosive than Montgomery, but I think we can do a half PPR kind of dance with D-Mont this week.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about every single time when the Lions are projected for anywhere close or above 28 points, then you can kind of pencil in a Dave Montgomery touchdown in there.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're at 30.25. Who was not projected for 30.25 points is Ashton Jeanty and the Las Vegas Raiders against the Cleveland Browns. You know, this Browns defense, number 1 or number 2 in all rushing stats against them. EPA allowed per rush, rush success rate, run stuff rate, and yards before contact per attempt allowed. How many tackles for loss and sacks combo is Myles Garrett going to get in this contest?
I don't even have any positive notes here, except that like
None.
Ashton Jeanty is going to catch some passes, and like in theory they're favorites here. But I was honestly stunned that the Raiders were projected for 20 points against the Browns. Now, like that might be factoring like legit, like not exaggerating, like pick sixes and stuff because of the quarterback on the other side. But it is looking bleak out there. I mean, how can we expect Jeanty to move the ball against Myles Garrett and the rest of them?
Right. And Gino to have, 3 seconds to even throw the football. If books are projecting like 2 pick sixes into this, that's an insane.
I'm only mostly trolling.
All right. Sean Tucker is your running back 21. This is at the Los Angeles Rams. Again, Bucky Irving, we'll see based on grainy footage from practice if he's going to play in this game. And if not, Sean Tucker took over the second half of last week, I should say. But facing the Rams defense on the road is much different than facing the Buffalo Bills rushing defense.
Yeah, I moved him up right next to Kenneth Walker, just like kind of thinking through this. I mean, we don't know if Bucky Irving's going to play or not, so this is just we're guesstimating at this point. But he just snatched Rachaad White's early down roll in the second half last week and did nothing to like dissuade us from thinking that's just going to be the case here. So don't love the matchup. The Rams have been third best against fantasy running backs, only allowing 15.3 points. So and teams like don't try to run the ball on the Rams either, where that was not the case against the Bills. Just remember the conversation we just had with Woody Marks. So not going to copy paste things, but Sean Tucker can really get out in space, and they've found that cheat code with the big wheel route and the Tristan Wirfs stuff. They're getting him to the edge. So I think he deserves like a fun ranking, even in a tough matchup.
Let's talk Aaron Jones. He's your running back 22 at the Green Bay Packers. I think some opposing offenses have not figured out, but leaned into the running game a bit more to kind of neutralize the sometimes lighter, faster Green Bay Packers defense. I mean, Tyrone Tracy did that last week for 139 yards. Devin Singletary, we know he got the 2 short yardage rushing scores. Even Saquon Barkley, somehow, some way, got 101 total yards in a game this season. That was against this Packers defense. So what are you expecting here for Aaron Jones?
Are you telling me Jerry Jones is right? Is that what's happening here? I mean, the same thing is like, regardless of matchup, it's what Kevin O'Connell's doing to his own offense, where the 2 most run heavy games of the season were last week and then in week 1. So that's 2 of the JJ McCarthy games. And I understand why. They're just going to lean into the run. They're going to protect their young quarterback. I think that's especially true given the matchup here. And then at the same time, Aaron Jones has looked good, and the offensive line is healthy again, like across the board, and they don't really use Jordan Mason. So they're only projected for 17 points. So we're talking about like a very similar situation as Quinshon Judkins, Jeanty, and the rest of these guys. But I actually feel pretty good about what the game plan is going to be with Aaron Jones. So I might move him up a little bit as I think more about this, but it's still the JJ McCarthy offense here, and I have my doubts.
Next is Breece Hall at the Baltimore Ravens. Again, talented running backs here.
Yeah.
Just some tough matchups. Breece only had 7 receptions over his past 5 games. Now, one of those receptions did force him to have a great fantasy week in terms of a 40-yard catch and touchdown. But the last time Tyrod Taylor started, and I think the only time he started, Breece Hall matched a season high with 6 targets. So that is the avenue he's going to need here against the Ravens.
Yeah, in my notes, I wrote that they promised him all that receiving work, and I think this is the time where you would use that when you have Tyrod Taylor, and I didn't look at the one game with Tyrod, so that's a very good point. I moved him up next to Kenneth Walker. I think of all the running backs in terrible situations, he's just the guy that I think I trust behind an actually good offensive line to spring an explosive, and his receiving work, I think, kind of speaks for itself. So I hate the matchup. I mean, the Jets are projected for 15.5 points. You have Kyle Hamilton in the damn box. Have you guys been watching Kyle Hamilton? He is hurling guys, spin moving guys in the A gap, and then also hunting guys down at the second level. It's wild to watch Kyle Hamilton.
Dude.
I think Hamilton's job is just going to be make sure Breece Hall finishes with 45 yards today or less. But still, like, what else are the Jets going to do? Throw the ball to freaking Mason Taylor?
What the Ravens are going to do is just line up their corners in isolation on the outside and just load the box.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. Alvin Kamara is up next. He's coming off a bye week. Now he gets this Atlanta Falcons defense, and he kind of got it going prior to the bye week against the Carolina Panthers.
He did. Yeah. That was 13 half PPR points on 14.9 expected points, which was his highest like since like week 4. So it was just kind of like a return to Alvin Kamara being a featured player. Maybe that's a Tyler Shuck thing. Maybe that's a no Rashid Shaheed thing. Maybe it's just no Kendre Miller and they're just not going to get anything out of Devin Neal. Did want to note the team total's up at 20 points. So it's not the same as the Jets and the Browns and everything else. It's, I would say, one tier above that. So I think he's got a fighting chance. My last note for the Alvin Kamara, how I finished my blurb, is just like, you can count me in with a question mark. I don't feel comfortable about this, but I don't know. Like, it's better situation than a lot of guys.
Bam Knight, you're running back 25 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they did open Trey Benson's 21-day practice window. Jonathan Gannon, who we know is, I don't know if I want to say used to misinformation or just no information or a lack of information, but he was asked if Trey Benson was going to play on Sunday. He called him, quote, day to day. So I don't know how to interpret that. We also know that Emari Demercado is going to be out here. So if Benson is out and Demercado is out, then the backfield is only Bam Knight and Michael Carter.
I watched footage of Trey Benson cutting in drills, and I think you and I have a better chance of suiting up than Trey Benson. It seemed like he was still, like, I'll call it week to week. Now, who knows? Maybe he was just half-assing it or whatever. But when it's been Michael Carter and Bam Knight, we've had 2 games of that. It came back in week 6 and week 7. Like, it was just those 2 guys. Bam Knight had 11 and 15 expected half PPR points. And since then, they've like released Michael Carter a million times just to re-sign him. So I think it's pretty clear that Bam Knight would be the lead back. He got a goal line attempt in the second half when it was Michael Carter playing a negative game script and they brought Bam Knight back in. Bam Knight's just a bigger player. So I do think that he would be the goal line back. This team's projected for 22.5 points. They have a record holder at quarterback and it's at home against Jacksonville. So I think he's like a firm, like, rock solid flex play.
Next is Quinshon Judkins as your running back 26. I understand the point total is abysmal, right? But if you were ever to think that Tommy Reese and Kevin Stefanski would just simply lean into the running game, it would kind of be against the Raiders. Now, albeit the Raiders aren't terrible against the run. Like Max Crosby knives through there. They have some other defensive line talent on top of that. But, you know, maybe not putting all your eggs in the Shedeur Sanders basket and relying more on Quinshon Judkins might be the avenue for them this week.
It will 100% be the avenue. Will it work? I'm not sure about that. Also this month, Quinshon is the RB38. You know, like, I don't make the rules. The Browns have stunk. Quinshon's awesome. But this month, he's the RB freaking 38 on RB 17 usage. The offensive line is a total mess. Stefanski is like kind of whatever as a play caller to me. And then I just have zero faith about what's going to happen on offense this week. So he is very live to rip off a huge play. Like, Quinshon is absolutely the man. They're going to use him plenty, but just worried about the whole environment.
Raiders tackling is suspect, but what they will do is line up in a whole bunch of single high looks and kind of load the box to try to stop it. That's what Pete Carroll has done for a very long time. All right. Rhamondre Stevenson is here. You talked about it earlier with TreVeyon, with the perspective that Rhamondre is in potentially. We had seen previously that he owned a lot of the work in this split backfield. How much of that percentage do you think Rhamondre immediately gets back off of a turf toe?
Yeah, I think the turf toe is like the big thing where I think even if TreVeyon was mediocre without him, I still would expect Rhamondre to not have the same exact role that he had previously. And then with TreVeyon, like, finding the groove here. And I think that they work together well where you can just like battering ram Rhamondre between the tackles. Then you get TreVeyon on all the fun stuff. So I think that's what's going to happen here. And even with that, like, Rhamondre Stevenson could just be at the goal line. I wouldn't be stunned if he got some goal line usage ahead of TreVeyon here. And there's enough room for both to boogie here. We're talking about the worst defense since the 1970s, and a 29-point team total. So, like, if you want to just like plug your nose and throw it in there, I would understand. So I think I would love to see a full practice, but we'll see.
Zach Charbonnet, running back 28 at the Tennessee Titans. Most likely, if they get inside the 5-yard line, Zach Charbonnet is going to get a touch of the football, because if it's from the 19-yard line, we know George Harlani's getting it too.
Yeah. He only works from 9 to 19 yards out. Yeah, the Seahawks are projected for 27 points. So it's almost the exact same scenario with Rhamondre Stevenson.
All right, we'll continue on. These are a bunch of like RB2s here, except for the New York Giants, as Tyrone Tracy ranks a couple spots ahead of Devin Singletary against the Lions on the road. You know, even with Jackson Dart likely suiting up for this game, the Giants are heavy underdogs here. And the Lions are also 5th in points allowed per touch to running backs this season. Tracy was fantastic last week between the 20s, but then as soon as they got inside the 20s, that's where Devin Singletary got 2 of his touchdowns.
It's all 18 snaps without Cam Scatterbo inside the 10-yard line have gone to Singletary. So it depends on the league format here. Also, just want to say, stylistically, just don't like this spot. I mean, the Lions just play a bunch of man coverage. They'll go like single high, and every single one of their players just wants to go kick your ass. And like, that's just the Lions defense here. So don't feel very comfortable with this. It's at under 20 expected points here. And then we'll always see about the Jackson Dart, how much he's going to run. Like, they say it, they'll teach it. You know, I mean, most quarterbacks that play like that, it's just kind of in their DNA. So we'll see.
Well, the other part too is, as you talked about, this Lions defense is aggressive and gets downhill. Like Jack Campbell, linebacker, in your face. Aiden Hutchinson off the edge, in your face. Brian Branch headhunting from the safety spot. So
and base defense, like 3 linebackers on the field, like every play.
I really don't want Jackson Dart to run.
No,
I mean,
no.
That's a brutal spot to run again. Okay. Yeah. Both Steelers backs are back-to-back here, and it makes sense. Like, it's really tough to guess what Arthur Smith feels on any given day when he wakes up and decides how to utilize this running back room.
Yeah, don't know if Jaylen Warren's going to play or not. He said it was a minor injury. He said he would have came back in. A lot of players say that. Just don't know. We'll update this later in the week. Just wanted to note that before his ankle injury, Kenny Gainwell was playing a lot. And like, Kenny Gainwell was playing the 2-minute drill. And I don't know about Aaron Rodgers if he's going to play. If he does play, he's like an even more limited version of Aaron Rodgers. Like, don't know what to expect there. Team total wise, it's like right below average at 21. The Bears defense is bad. They could be getting better, maybe not this week, but soon afterwards. They got Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson, 2 corners, back in the mix, at least just to open up their 21-day window. So the last like 6 or 7 names here, this is where you have to come back, join us on Sunday morning, go to Underdog Network, because all these guys I'm going to be moving and shaking.
Last 2, Rachaad White and Kyle Monangai. Anything you want to add about these guys, or do you want to wrap it up here at 34?
Yeah, I mean, they're live for some work, but they're not the featured backs in their offense. And then like afterwards, I got the Titans guys even buried further, like Tyler Algiers, Keaton Mitchell. I mean, we're just making guys up at the end.
Of course we are. All right. That's going to do it for us. Tomorrow, it's the last rest of season / trades show that I have with Faraz of the season. Faraz has been a big boost to the channel. It's been a really fun show to do. So be sure to tune into that one ahead of Thursday Night Football. And then we're back with Friday and Saturday rankings episodes. Just a heads up on your Thanksgiving week. We will be having the normal, I believe, Hayden, you correct me if I'm wrong, normal waiver wire show on Monday night. No.
And
okay.
Out. He's going to a concert.
Okay. I've already screwed that one up. But then on Tuesday and then a double episode on Wednesday. There's no stats versus film, but we're going to do running backs, wide receivers, and quarterbacks, tight end rankings, all ahead of the Thanksgiving Day games next week. So the injury information will be suspect, but our takes will be accurate.
We hope.
Okay. That's going to do it. Tune in tomorrow. Up the Villa. Talk to y'all soon. See ya.